Hey everyone, welcome to Homeschool. And I am back with a target of scoring 60 out of 80 series, where I have already covered two parts. Part 1, I did it on chemistry chapters, and part 2 video was on physics chapters. Whereas today I am doing part 3 video on biology chapters, where I would be covering all important and most expected questions from biology part. So these questions I selected by doing lot of research and by referring the previous year question papers. Clear? And so you have to concentrate these questions a lot and do share the videos to maximum friends as possible, because many of them have deprived of education during this lockdown. So you must help with one another and do share this video to maximum friends as possible. Clear? Fine. And let me start with life process chapter, where the respiration is deleted and nutrition is deleted this year, and you have only circulation, that is transportation and excretion. Say the important diagrams I'll tell you. First diagram that is very important is drawing human heart along with labeling, and the second diagram is nephron structure, and the third one is excretory system in human beings. So these are the three diagrams you have to concentrate, and don't worry, in my next video I am showing you how to draw the diagrams, all diagrams easily, that is there for 2021 examination. Clear? So I repeat the diagrams once again. Human heart diagram, nephron diagram, and excretory system diagram, okay, which you can refer for the textbook. So straight away I'll go for the question and answers. The very important question is, describe double circulation of blood in human beings. Why is it necessary? Okay, see, what do you mean by double circulation? Blood passes twice through the heart during one cycle is called double circulation, isn't it? Say for the first time what happens is, from the lungs the blood will go, oxygenated blood will go to the heart. From a heart it is going to all body parts. That is so one part of a cycle. And again what you will observe, from all the body parts the deoxygenated blood would pass through the heart to lungs, isn't it? So in one way what is happening, the oxygenated blood is going from the heart to all body parts, and again from all body parts the impure blood is coming to the heart, and through the heart only it will go to the lungs. So two times the blood is coming into the heart. And one is oxygenated blood, the other one is deoxygenated blood, and this is what we mean by double circulation, right? So I have written the answer here. Blood passes twice through the heart during each cycle is called double circulation, and this double circulation is very much necessary in case of mammals and birds. So why? It is because oxygenated blood is separated with deoxygenated blood, right? Definitely there should not be mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So for that double circulation will help us, so that both bloods will not get mixed up. And this is very much necessary because high energy needs you will find in mammals and birds, and also double circulation, DC means double circulation here. It facilitates the supply of large amount of oxygen. Okay, say mammals and birds require a large amount of energy. For that, large amount of oxygen have to be supplied, and all this do occur is because of double circulation. That is the reason double circulation is very much necessary in case of mammals and birds. So this is a really very important question, can be asked in any way. Okay, they may ask you why double circulation is necessary in case of mammals and birds. Then what should be your answer? Because mammals and birds need high energy, and double circulation facilitates the supply of large amount of oxygen. This must be your answer. Okay, so the entire things about double circulation have to be familiarized. Coming to the next question. What are the components of the transport system in humans? What are the functions of these components? Say they are asking you components of transport system, right? That is circulatory system. Say the components are the blood, first one, and the second one is heart, and the third one is blood vessels, right? And last but very important is lymph. So these are the four components you can mention for transport system, and they are asking you what is the function of each component system. So what is the function of blood? You know, blood carries or transports oxygenated blood, isn't it? Oxygenated blood. I'm writing it in a short form, but you should not write like this in the exam. You have to write completely as oxygenated blood. Clear? So the blood transport oxygenated blood to all body parts. Body parts. And not only that, it collects what? Deoxygenated blood from all body parts. So this is the function of blood. Clear? And coming to the heart. Heart will act as a blood pump. Yes or no? Blood pump. And it will help for not mixing oxygenated blood with deoxygenated blood. Right? That is the work of heart. And the next one is, or I can also say that it is a supplier of blood to all parts of the body also, right? And coming to the blood vessels, what do you mean by blood vessels? You have the two important blood vessels. The first one is arteries and the second one is veins, isn't it? So what do arteries do? Arteries carry oxygenated blood to all body parts, isn't it? Okay. And what does the veins do? Veins carry deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body. From all parts of body. So this is the work of blood vessels. And coming to the lymph, and it's a very very important question. It can be asked as a separate question also. They'll ask you what is the function of lymph or what is lymph. So what is lymph? Lymph is a colorless fluid, isn't it? So what is the main function of lymph here? You know, lymph actually absorbs fats and fat soluble vitamins. Fat soluble vitamins. So this is one function of the lymph, and you know it gives back proteins and tissue fluids into the blood. Clear? So this is another one, and very important function is it fights against diseases. It will protect our body against diseases. So it is a part of immune system, I can say. So these are the 3 points you can mention for the functions of lymph. Okay, see, I have written blood, heart and blood vessels function in a shortcut way because everybody would be knowing their functions. You can write however the way you want, but definitely this lymph can be asked as a separate question. So 3 points in a detailed way I mentioned here. Clear? Fine. And coming to the next question, the body temperature of frogs and lizards depend on temperature in the environment. Justified. Okay. See, humans or mammals and birds body temperature is always constant. It will not change according to the environment, isn't it? But in case of frogs and lizards, that is in reptiles, the body temperature is not constant. You know, the temperature changes according to the environment. It is because, see, here I have written the answer. They have 3-chambered heart. cold-blooded animals, they are called as cold-blooded animals, they change their body temperature according to the temperature of environment, and their energy needs is also very much less. Clear? And you will also observe the mixing of oxygenated blood with deoxygenated blood. Clear? So this is the answer you can write for this question. Clear? Fine. And coming to the next question, significance of pulmonary vein and pulmonary artery. So what is the main function of pulmonary vein and pulmonary artery? See, pulmonary vein, what will it do? It will carry oxygenated blood, isn't it, from lungs to heart. This is the major function of pulmonary vein, whereas pulmonary artery carry deoxygenated blood, right, from heart to lungs. And we all very well know that arteries always carry oxygenated blood, veins always carry deoxygenated blood. But it is opposite. Pulmonary vein is the vein that will always carry oxygenated blood from lungs to left atrium of the heart, isn't it? And pulmonary artery always carry deoxygenated blood from heart back to the lungs. So a very, very important question, can be asked as MCQ or 1 mark. So you have to be careful. See, the next question is, explain the process of translocation of food materials in plants. Or the same question can be asked in another way, that is, how food is transported in plants. Say, I gave you the answer in 4 points. You have to write as it is to get 2 marks here. See the first point, the transport of soluble products of photosynthesis. What do you mean by soluble product of photosynthesis? It is nothing but food that is formed in the form of sucrose, isn't it? So, is called translocation. So, transport of food is called translocation. It takes place in phloem. So phloem is a special type of a tissue which helps in carrying food from leaves to other parts of the body. Food is prepared in the leaf. From the leaf, the food, that is the soluble products, that is sucrose, will go to other parts of the body. So it takes place in phloem. Occurs, phloem again has a component called sieve tube and companion cells. So in phloem, it occurs in sieve tubes with companion cells. Okay. So next, sucrose is transported into phloem tissue using energy from ATP. Say in case of leaves, this sucrose is formed, isn't it, by the process of photosynthesis. And every part of the plant body is connected to phloem tissue. So how will this food gets transported into the phloem tissue? Through phloem tissue only, the food will go to various parts of the plant body. So how is the food from a leaf is moving into phloem tissue? It is with the help of energy from ATP. Okay. Then this increases osmotic pressure of tissue. So phloem tissue has sieve tubes, no? So in the sieve tube, pressure increases, which we call it as osmotic pressure. So this increases osmotic pressure of a tissue. This pressure moves the material in the phloem tissue, which has less pressure. Say the food is coming into this cell where the pressure has become more. Say any substance will move from high pressure area to low pressure area, isn't it? So now the food is moving from this cell to this cell of phloem tissue. This is one sieve tube. This is another sieve tube. Since the pressure is more here, the entire food is coming to this cell. Again, here the osmotic pressure would become more. Now the food will move to the next sieve tube. Like that, sieve tubes are connected with each other, no? So the food is moving from one sieve tube to another sieve tube. So this way, the transport of food in plants takes place. Clear everybody? So what is the first point? Takes place with the help of phloem tissue. Phloem tissue has sieve tubes and companion cells. Through sieve tubes, the food is moving. It is due to osmotic pressure. Clear? Fine. Coming to the next question. Differentiate between xylem and phloem they are asking. So what do you mean by xylem? Xylem is a special tissue which involves the transport of water and minerals, isn't it? So water is transported with the help of xylem tissue, whereas phloem, just now I told you, phloem helps in the transport of food, isn't it? That is sucrose, right? So this is the major difference between xylem and phloem. And the second one is in the xylem tissue, the water moves in only one direction. Water moves in only one direction. We call it as unidirectional. We call this as unidirectional. So in which direction the water would move in a plant body? Say water has to move from root to leaves, isn't it? All parts of the body. So that means the water will move in upward direction. Upward direction. In only one direction water can move in a plant. So we say the movement is unidirectional. But here in case of phloem, the movement is bidirectional. The movement is bidirectional. I mean, the food, say for example, food should move to all parts of the body. Food has to move upwards, food has to move downward, isn't it? Food must reach to the root also, and the food must reach to the tip of the plant also. So the food is moving both direction. That is why we call the movement is bidirectional in case of phloem. But in xylem, the movement is unidirectional, right? So these are the two major points you have to mention as the differences. Fine. Coming to the next question. How water and minerals transported? I mean, how does the water and minerals get circulated in the plant body? So here I have written 2 points as an answer. Read the first point. Transport of water and minerals takes place through which tissue? It is xylem tissue. We know now. What is helping water and minerals to move in upward direction? See, I told you the water will move from root to leaves. Yes or no? In the upward direction. So which process is helping water and minerals to move in upward direction? It is transpiration. Okay. Can you tell me what do you mean by transpiration? Transpiration is loss of water in the form of vapor. In the form of vapor from leaves. From leaves is called transpiration. Okay. So transpiration helps in the absorption and upward movement of water and minerals from roots to leaves. Okay. So these are the 2 points you can mention if it is asked for 2 marks. Clear everyone? So this is all about the plants transportation we have discussed. How is food transported in plants? How is water and minerals transported in plant? And what is the difference between xylem and phloem? Right? And let us discuss few more questions. The next question is how plants get rid of excretory products. See, I have listed 4 points. It can be asked for 2 marks. See, many plant waste products are stored in cellular vacuoles. Okay, second point. Waste products may be stored in leaves and those leaves later fall off. Clear? Waste products are also stored as resins and gums, and these resins and gums can come out from a bark part of a plant. And plants get rid of excess water and oxygen through stomata, right? Actually, after photosynthesis, the byproduct is oxygen, and that oxygen will come out through stomata. And to some extent, during respiration, the byproduct is carbon dioxide. Even that carbon dioxide, along with water, it can come out through stomata. So plants get rid of these waste products, these gases and excess water through stomata, right? So if you can mention these 4 points, definitely you will get 2 marks for this question. Coming to the next question, give reason for ventricles are thick walled. Ventricles are thick walled. So we know the heart, and it has 4 chambers, right? And the bottom chambers are called ventricles. And the ventricles are very much thick, isn't it? When you draw a diagram also, the bottom portion you will show much thicker because the 2 ventricles are thick walled. So why they are thick walled? Because it is through ventricles the heart pumps the blood, isn't it? It is through ventricle, the left ventricle, the blood will go to different parts of the body through aorta, isn't it? And then from the right ventricle, the blood, I mean, here you have a deoxygenated blood, and this blood must go to a lungs through pulmonary artery, isn't it? So because the blood has to pumped by these particular regions, so the wall has to be quite thick. So what is the answer you will give? Because through ventricles, heart pumps the blood with high pressure. With high pressure. Say when something is going with a high pressure, then that has to be quite strong, otherwise it will get ruptured, isn't it? So that's the reason the ventricles are thick walled. So this can be your answer. And coming to the next question, very simple. Differentiate between arteries and veins. So they are asking, what are the differences between arteries and veins? So can you tell me? Very simple question. Arteries are the one which carry oxygenated blood, isn't it, to various parts of the body. Various parts of the body, except which artery? Pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery is the one which carries deoxygenated blood from heart to lungs, isn't it? Except that all arteries carry oxygenated blood to various parts of the body, whereas the veins carry deoxygenated blood, right, from all parts of a body to heart, isn't it? So that is the work of veins. And arteries are thick walled. They are thick walled because the blood really goes with very much high pressure to various parts of the body. That's why the walls of the arteries is quite thick, whereas the veins are thin walled. Okay, and the veins also have something called valves, and here there are no valves, because valves are the one which avoids the backflow of the blood, right? Say valves necessity is there in case of veins, whereas arteries no need of any valves, because the blood goes with high pressure, the blood will not come back. Okay, backflow of the blood you will not observe in the artery, so you will not have something called valves. Clear? So these are the differences between arteries and veins. So with this I am completing a chapter, life processes, and how to draw the diagrams easily, and few diagram based questions I am doing it in the next video. Clear? And now I will move to the chapter control and coordination. Guys, first and foremost, note down the most important diagrams from control and coordination. Say the first one is structure of neuron. The other one is diagram of human brain. So 1 in 2 diagrams is compulsory for 2021 examination. So be careful. Fine. And let me go for the question and answers, important ones. First one, what is synapse and what happens at synapse? So can you all tell me what do you mean by synapse? Synapse is nothing but a gap between two neurons. right? Okay. Now can you tell me what happens in this gap between two neurons? Say if this is one neuron, right? Say I'm not doing it properly, just for the reference sakes, I have drawing something like this, right? This is one neuron, this is another neuron. So this gap is our synapse, isn't it? So what happens here is the electric impulse that is there at the ending of one neuron, right? Axon ending of one neuron have to get transferred into the dendrite of another neuron. So this electric impulse gets converted into chemicals, right? So electric impulse is transported in the form of chemicals, and the chemicals are called neurotransmitters. So these chemicals reach the dendrite of another neuron, and there it is again getting converted into electric impulse. Okay, so what you can write here, electric impulse gets transported, right? So from where to where it has to get transported? From ending, axon ending of one neuron to dendrite of another neuron in the form of chemicals called neurotransmitters, right? So this is what you have to mention if they ask you what happens at synapse. Okay, fine. And the next question, components of reflex arc. What are the components of reflex arc and what is their duty, they are asking. And can you tell me what do you mean by reflex actions here? Reflex actions are the sudden actions which is coordinated by spinal cord is called reflex actions. So how does this reflex action work? In what way? Can be explained with the help of reflex arc. So what are the different components of reflex arc? It is, first thing is receptors, right? And the information, receptors are the one which detects the information from the environment, and that information gets passed, right, from one part to another part. So what is the work of receptors? Receptors actually detect the stimuli from the external environment. From the receptor, this stimuli will go in the form of electric impulse through sensory neuron, right? Fine. From sensory neuron, the information is getting passed to, spinal cord. From the spinal cord, it will get, the information is processed in the spinal cord, and later that information get passed to motor neuron, right? From the motor neuron, it will go to effector organ. So effector organ will act according to stimuli. It gives response to the stimuli, isn't it? Now these are the components, guys. Receptors, sensory neuron, spinal cord, motor neuron and effector organ are the various components of reflex arc. Now I'll mention their duty, that is their function. Receptors, what is the duty? It detects the stimuli. And sensory neuron, what is the duty? Carries information to spinal cord. Right? From receptors, it is carrying that electric impulse to spinal cord. So what is happening in the spinal cord? Spinal cord processes the information. It processes the information, right? And whatever the processed information is there, that would be carried by motor neuron to effector organ, right? So what will our motor neuron do? Carries information from spinal cord to effector organ, right? Fine. And what will the effector organ do? Effector organ finally gives response to stimuli. Okay. So this is how our reflex arc works, and this sudden actions coordinated by spinal cord is called as reflex actions. One of the important topic for this year board examination. Clear? Fine. And the next question is functions of different parts of brain. Different parts will do different work. They coordinate in a different way, and these things can be asked as MCQ as well as 1 mark. So here I have listed the functions of different parts of the brain. You can observe here. See, forebrain. See, the brain has 3 parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. Forebrain, which is also called as cerebrum. So, what is the work of cerebrum? It controls the voluntary actions, and it is a seat of intelligence, and it will have a box of memory. I mean, it has a place for a memory, isn't it? So, what do you mean by voluntary actions? So these are the actions which depend on our thinking process, is called as voluntary actions. Okay. Say for example, I am talking. In case if I think to stop talking, I can stop it, right? And if my mind tells me to walk, I can walk. So any action that depends on thinking process is called as voluntary actions. So all these voluntary actions to some extent can be controlled by cerebrum, and cerebrum also has a seat of intelligence and memory. Clear? And now coming to the midbrain. Midbrain actually controls involuntary actions. Involuntary actions in the sense the actions which are not based on our thinking process. Say like heartbeat. Say for example, if you think to stop your heartbeat, is it possible? No, right? Our heart continuously beats 24/7. It doesn't depend on our thinking process, right? So such actions which do not depend on thinking process is called as involuntary actions. Okay, and now coming to the hindbrain. So hindbrain again has 3 parts here. One is cerebellum, the other one is pons, and the third one is medulla oblongata, right? So cerebellum, what is the cerebellum's duty? It actually maintains the posture, body balance, or we can also call it as body equilibrium. And walking in a straight line, picking pencil, riding bicycle, all these depend on body balance, isn't it? So that body balance and body posture is maintained by cerebellum. So try to remember the function of cerebellum. It can be asked for MCQ or 1 mark. Okay, fine. And next is the function of medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata controls the involuntary actions such as blood pressure, BP in the sense blood pressure, salivation, that is secretion of saliva. All this happens on its own. It doesn't depend on thinking process, isn't it? So vomiting, sneezing, coughing. If you want to control sneezing, is it possible? Never, right? So this is an example for involuntary actions. So sneezing, coughing, vomiting, all these involuntary actions are controlled by which part of the brain? It is medulla or medulla oblongata. Clear? So the different parts of the brain and their function is a very, very important question. Clear? Fine. And next question is mention different types of hormones. I mean location, function, deficiency, diseases of various hormones. So this is also the most expected questions for any board examination, for any year board examination actually. So you must definitely concentrate on this question. See, there are so many hormones and you must know what is the work of that hormone, where it is getting secreted, okay, what is the function and what is the deficiency disease. All that list I will write down on a board. Along with me, you can note it down in your book. Clear? Guys, concentrate the first hormone, that is growth hormone. Okay, so this growth hormone, where is it located? I mean, place of secretion. Place of secretion is pituitary gland. It will get secreted in pituitary gland. Where is this pituitary gland is present? It is again present in brain, isn't it? And now can you tell me what is the function? The function is helps in the growth of a body. Helps in growth, isn't it? And now let us discuss about deficiency diseases. Deficiency diseases. See, excess of pituitary or excess of growth hormone, right? I'll write it as GH in the sense growth hormone. Excess of growth hormones causes gigantism. Gigantism in the sense person growing too much tall is called gigantism. And low levels of growth hormone causes a disease called dwarfism. Dwarfism in the sense growing short. Clear? So these are the three things you have to remember for every hormone. So this is the information for growth hormone. Clear? And now let me go for the hormone called thyroxine. Thyroxine. So where is thyroxine located? Place of secretion is thyroid gland. So again, where is this thyroid gland present? Thyroid gland is located in throat area. Clear? And can you tell me what is the function of thyroxine hormone? The function is actually this maintains metabolism, carbohydrate metabolism, fat metabolism, and protein metabolism. Okay, so what I can write here is regulates carbohydrate and fat metabolism. Very, very important hormone. Okay, and now the deficiency disease. See, deficiency disease is actually goiter, okay, or I can say hypothyroidism, hypothyroidism, and hyperthyroidism also can be caused. And now you have to remember the disease called goiter. Actually, goiter is caused due to the deficiency of iodine. You know why iodine is important here? Iodine is important for the secretion of thyroxine. Say if you don't take enough iodine, thyroxine hormone will not be secreted enough, so that it leads to the disease called goiter. Goiter is actually enlargement of thyroid gland or enlargement of throat you will observe in goiter disease. Clear? So the entire information about thyroxine is really very, very important. So it is very much necessary to consume iodine on a daily basis, because iodine stimulates the production of thyroxine hormone. If you don't take enough iodine, what is the disease caused? Goiter. What is goiter? Enlargement of throat area. I mean, enlargement of thyroid gland is called goiter. Clear? Fine. And the next hormone is adrenaline. Very important hormone. So adrenaline is secreted in adrenal gland. Adrenal gland. So where is this adrenal gland present? Again, it's present in kidney. Above the kidney, you will see this adrenal gland. So you know what is the function of adrenaline? Function is very important here. Actually, it controls heartbeat, okay, blood pressure, etc. And this adrenaline is also called as flight and fright hormone, right? And actually the way adrenaline works in the blood, how it gets released in the blood, and how it is responsible for controlling heartbeat, blood pressure, etc., have been very clearly explained in the video that I did it as application questions on control and coordination, where the link I will provide in the description. You can watch that video so that many number of questions are covered, application questions, so that you will get an idea how this adrenaline hormone actually works and how it gets released in the blood. Clear? Fine. So now let us go for another hormone, insulin. So where is insulin secreted? Insulin is secreted in pancreas. Okay? Pancreas. Say, what is the function of insulin? Function of insulin is controls blood sugar level. Clear? And the disease you have to remember, deficiency of insulin causes a disease called diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus. So this is all about insulin hormone. And next is our hormone, male hormone called testosterone. Testosterone. So it is secreted in testis. Okay, and its function is it is responsible for developing male sex characters. Okay, or male secondary characters, we can write secondary characters. So this is the work of testosterone. Fine. And now the next hormone is progesterone. Progesterone and estrogen. So these are actually called as female hormones, and these female hormones are produced in ovaries. And what is the function of this progesterone and estrogen? Responsible for developing female secondary characters. Clear? So these are the most important hormones, their place of secretion, function, and few deficiency diseases. So very, very important question. Clear? So similarly, they may ask you plant hormones also. So here is a question. Mention different types of plant hormones and their uses. So what are the different types of plant hormones? See guys, you mainly have 4 plant hormones. One is auxins. Second one is gibberellins. And the third one is cytokinins. And finally we have a hormone, abscisic acid. So now you must know their function. So what does the auxins do? Auxins help in a growth of a plant. It actually helps in cell elongation, or I can say in growth of plant, right? So now the function of gibberellins is also similar to auxins only. It also helps in the growth, but it helps in the growth of a stem. Yeah. And now the cytokinin, it is also related to growth only, but it helps in cell division. Fine. Abscisic acid actually inhibits the growth. It helps in stopping the growth. Inhibits the growth. And also you can write wilting of leaves. That is falling of leaves. Wilting of leaves. Clear? So these are the 4 plant hormones and their functions. So really very important question. All hormones in humans, that is various hormones that we studied, growth hormone, thyroxine, insulin, adrenaline, testosterone and progesterone and estrogen, and later the plants hormones and their functions, right? So with this, I am completing a chapter, control and coordination. See, I have done the most expected and important questions. If you want few more questions on a chapter like application questions, you can watch the video that I have already told you. I did an application questions on control and coordination. Link I have mentioned in the description. Just go and click the link. You will get many more questions and lots of concept about the chapter. And now I am going for the next chapter, how do organisms reproduce? Guys, note down the important diagrams that can be asked from this chapter. So the first important diagram is longitudinal section of flower. Next one is germination of pollen on stigma. Later, diagram on human male reproductive system and diagram on human female reproductive system. So two diagrams from plant reproduction and two diagrams from human reproduction. Clear? And asexual reproduction is completely deleted from the chapter. Only from sexual reproduction onwards you have for 2021 examination. Clear? And now let us discuss a few important questions from biology part, that is from this particular chapter. First question. What is the advantage of sexual reproduction over asexual reproduction? See, I have given an answer here in a simple words. You can read here. Sexual reproduction creates variations which are useful for ensuring survival of species and species formation, right? So during sexual reproduction, you will observe something called variation. So how does this variations helpful? These variations are helpful for the organisms to adapt for a new environment, and it leads to the formation of new species, right? New variety of a species, more advanced type of organism that can adapt to a existing environment. Right? In asexual reproduction, you don't have something called variation. You will have exact copies of parents. But in a sexual reproduction, some amount of variation is observed in the future generation, where that helps the future generation to adopt for the new environment. Isn't it? So that is the advantage of sexual reproduction over asexual reproduction. Clear? And the second question, what are the changes seen in girls and boys at the time of puberty? So what do you mean by a puberty? Puberty is a certain age where secondary characters are observed in both males and females. Okay. So puberty is the age that indicates that the boys and girls, I mean the males and females, are ready for reproduction. Right? That's the age where many of the secondary characters are achieved. Fine. So what changes you observe during puberty in girls? Say you can observe these points. First one is growth of hair in armpits and private parts. Increase of breast size, begins to menstruate. Okay. So these are the changes observed in girls. And now the changes in the boys: thick hair growth on face, voice begins to crack, hair growth in armpits and private parts. Okay, so these are the changes you can mention. Very simple, right? Fine. And the next question, functions of different parts in male reproductive system. Say they can ask you, write the functions of different parts in male reproductive system. Write the functions of different parts in female reproductive system. Say in the previous year, they asked for male reproductive system, right? So I think this part of the question is also very, very important. I have listed out the functions of various parts in male reproductive system as well as female reproductive system. You can just observe and you can copy as it is in your book, and you can write as it is in the examination also. See, different parts of male reproductive system: testis, vas deferens, associate glands, and penis. So what is the function of testis? Testis secretes hormone called testosterone. We studied that. And testis also helps in the formation and regulation of sperms. Clear? And now vas deferens. Vas deferens is a thin pipe-like structure which actually carries sperms from testis to urethra. And next is associate glands. There are two associate glands which majorly works in male reproductive system. That is prostate gland and seminal vesicles. Very, very important. Individual questions can be asked on these glands only. So you have to mention their function here. Prostate gland and seminal vesicles secretes a kind of fluid, that is a liquid, which helps for easy movement or easy transport of sperms. And also they give nourishment to the sperms. I mean, they provide nutrition to the sperm. So both of them helps in the secretion of certain fluid. This fluid gives nutrition to the sperm, and this fluid also helps the sperm to move easily, to transport easily. And now the penis ejaculates the sperm through urethra. Right? So these are the different parts of male reproductive system and their functions. And now they would also ask you write the different parts of female reproductive system and their functions. So the first important part is ovary. So what does the ovary do? It produces eggs, and also it can produce certain hormones like progesterone and estrogen also, right? And next one is fallopian tube. Fallopian tube actually carries egg from ovary to womb, and fallopian tube is the one where fertilization occurs. So what do you mean by fertilization? Fusion of egg with sperm to form zygote is called fertilization. So where does the fertilization takes place? Fertilization takes place in fallopian tube, or it is also called as oviduct. Clear? It's a very important question for 1 mark or MCQ. So careful with this. Next is uterus. So implantation of embryo takes place in uterus. So what do you mean by implantation? Say in case if fertilization occurs in fallopian tube, what happens to that zygote? It divides and it becomes embryo. So where will that embryo move? It will move to so-called uterus, and that is what we call it as implantation. So for rest of the 9 months, that embryo is present in the uterus, and it grows in the uterus into fetus. Okay, and it gets its nourishment through placenta, and this placenta is also a tissue which is present in uterus itself. Right? So uterus is the major portion. It's a bag-like or sac-like structure in case of female reproductive system. And now coming to cervix. Cervix is just a passage through which sperms can enter into female reproductive system. So these are the various parts of female reproductive system and their functions. The next question is, what are the different contraceptive methods? See, there are various contraceptive methods, like barrier methods are there, right? And chemical methods are there, as well as surgical methods are there. So what do you mean by barrier methods? Using certain physical things like, condom, diaphragm, right? And copper T, all this. So they are also called as mechanical methods. Okay, and now the chemical methods are to take oral pills by women. So this blocks the ovulation or sometimes the fertilization also. And coming to the surgical methods, there are two methods. One is vasectomy and tubectomy. So vasectomy is done in male, tubectomy is done in female. So in vasectomy, they will cut and tie the vas deferens tubes. In tubectomy, they will tie fallopian tubes. Okay, so to avoid this fertilization. That's all about the different contraceptive methods. And coming to the next question, really an important question. How does the embryo get nourishment inside the mother's body? Or they will ask you, what is placenta and what is its importance? The same question can be asked in a different way, but the answer is this. See, I have mentioned the answer in 4 different points. You can mention as it is. wrote it in a very simple way to make it much easier. See, embryo gets nutrition from mother's blood through a tissue called placenta. First point. Second point, you are talking about placenta. What is this placenta actually? It is a disc-like tissue develops between uterine wall and embryo. Clear? Say if this is the uterus, if here the embryo is there, you know, it is the tissue that develops between uterine wall. This is uterine wall and this is embryo which has umbilical cord connected to placenta. So here placenta would be there. Okay. Next, it has villi. Villi in the sense finger-like structures on embryo side, which provides maximum surface for the absorption of nutrients by embryo. So through these finger-like structure which is present on a placenta helps for the absorption of nutrients by embryo. Clear? And the last point, waste products, waste generated in embryo will also come into mother's blood through this placenta only. Okay, so these are the 4 points you can mention here. Next question. What happens when egg is not fertilized? Okay, or they will ask you what is menstruation, how menstruation is caused. See, the same answer you can write for both questions. See, the question, it has 5 points you can mention as it is. The first one, ovary releases 1 egg every month. Uterus prepares every month to receive fertilized egg. Okay, so uterus every month it gets prepared to receive the fertilized egg. How it gets prepared is its lining becomes thick and strong to nourish the embryo. Uterine wall becomes thick and strong because it has to hold that fertilized egg in it, isn't it? So that's how the uterus prepares itself. And this lining is not needed if egg is not fertilized. Say if embryo doesn't come and get implanted there, this lining is not necessary, isn't it? So this lining slowly breaks and comes out through vagina in the form of blood and mucus. Okay, so now the lining is not necessary if the egg is not fertilized. So this lining will come out through vagina in the form of blood and mucus, and this is what we call menstruation. Okay, so this is all about the question. And now there are certain simple questions. What are sexually transmitted diseases? Give examples. Say, what do you mean by sexually transmitted diseases? The diseases that is caused by sexual act is called sexually transmitted diseases, right? Can you give certain examples? AIDS, syphilis, any 2 examples you can remember, gonorrhea, many of them are there, at least 2 try to remember. This is also one of the important question. So, and one more, the questions relating to plant reproduction. They may ask you the differences type. They'll ask you write the differences between self-pollination and cross-pollination. So what do you mean by self-pollination and cross-pollination? Very simple question, right? Self-pollination means transfer of pollen grains onto stigma in the same flower is called self-pollination. Cross-pollination is transfer of pollen grains from one flower to stigma of another flowers is called as cross-pollination. Right? And they will also ask you what is the difference between pollination and fertilization, or they will ask you the difference between unisexual flower and bisexual flower. So all these are very simple questions. I will leave these questions for you. You write the answers and get prepared with the questions. Say there are 3 questions. I am giving it for you to write the answers. They are the difference between self-pollination, cross-pollination, difference between pollination and fertilization, difference between monosexual flower and bisexual flower. Clear? So with this, I am completing the chapter how do organisms reproduce. And let us go for the next chapter. See guys, one more important chapter for this year is heredity and evolution. None of the topics are deleted in a chapter. Everything is there for examination. See, all important questions from heredity and evolution is already done. Its video link is provided in the description. Just go to the description and check it out, all the important questions. See, I have done the important questions. See, I'm not repeating again in this video. I'll just mention what concepts are very important. Dihybrid cross, they'll ask dihybrid cross, and they'll ask you traits are independently existed in the offspring, isn't it? So why? The reason they will ask you, you have to explain with one example. See, you have to know how to put the checkerboard or Punnett square for dihybrid cross as well as monohybrid cross. So that's one important aspect. And later they would be asking you about evolution. What is evolution and what is speciation, and some definitions like genetic drift, gene flow, etc. Then evidences for evolution they will ask you, that is homologous series and analogous series, the most important question. Differences they would ask you. And also the fossils, what are fossils and how do you determine the age of fossils, and all these are the very important questions. And 6 to 7 questions I have already solved in the video. Do watch that video so that you will get an idea about the important questions on heredity and evolution. See, the most important topic, you cannot neglect it. Don't forget to watch the video. So you can go to the link that is provided below in the description soon after you complete watching this video. Clear everybody? Is that okay? If it is okay, type okay in comment box, and you tell me that you are going to watch that video also on heredity and evolution. And if you don't find that video in a description, tell me to post the video. I will individually post the video for you all if you place your comment. Clear? So comment okay in the comment box. Fine. And now I'll go for the last and simple important. You will not get too many questions from this chapter, but at least they would ask you 2 mark or 3 mark questions, direct questions they would ask you. And such a chapter is sustainable management of natural resources. Okay, so here are few questions, and their answers also I have written in a shortcut way so that it can help you out to note it down. Okay, first question. Mention 5 R's to be followed in the conservation of natural resources. So how do you conserve natural resources? This is another way of asking a question. So what are the 5 R's that you can mention? Refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. Right? First you have to say no to the substances that are harming the environment, like plastic. Before using a plastic, you have to think. First you have to try saying no. If you cannot avoid using a plastic, then reduce it. Use to a limited extent. And after using, don't throw it at once. You can reuse it. If you can reuse it, again use it. And that is what we mean by reuse. And then repurpose. Say if you cannot reuse also, then you try to convert that into something else, like some decorative things and see broken ceramics and all. Instead of throwing outside, you can transform into some decorative items, isn't it? So that is what we mean by repurpose. And then these things, plastic and all these things, can be recycled. So when you have a chance of recycling, we have to recycle. Clear? So these are the 5 R's that we can adopt in your life to conserve natural resources. Next question. Who are the stakeholders of forest produce? So what are the stakeholders? Stakeholders are the people who will take care of the forest, isn't it? So are the people who are dependent on the forest. It is their responsibility to protect the forest, isn't it? So the 4 stakeholders. People who live in forest. So how these people become stakeholders of the forest? Because these are the people who completely depend on a forest for their shelter, for their food, for their medicine, etc. ऐसा no, they use bamboo for their shelter. They'll use varieties of fruits and vegetables that is available in the forest. You know, that way they completely depend on the forest. So it is their duty to protect the forest, and they will definitely protect the forest. And we have certain instances also, like where the local people have done lots of movements in protecting a forest. And the second one is forest departments, because the land is owned by forest department, so it is their duty to safeguard the forest. Third one is industrialist, because industrialists are the guys who will get raw materials from the forest, isn't it? And lastly, forest or wildlife enthusiast. Okay, so these are the four stakeholders of forest. Next question. Give some instances of involvement of local people in the management of forest. Say how the local people have done the movements in protecting a forest, how they have safeguarded the forest in different situations. You know, at least 2 to 3 examples you have to give. And we studied 3 instances in a chapter that I have mentioned here. So the first one is Amruta Devi Bishnoi of Bishnoi community, and this lady has sacrificed her life with 363 others in a way of protecting a sacred tree called Kejri trees, right? Kejri trees were the sacred trees for that Bishnoi community. So in order to protect that Kejri trees, Amruta Devi Bishnoi sacrificed her life with 363 others. So this is one instance where local people stood by the forest in protecting it, right? And the next one is a very famous thing, Chipko Andolan, hug tree movement, isn't it? So it was done in the Himalayas. And the third one is in 1972, West Bengal Forest Department recognized its failure in reviving degraded sal forest. So sal forest was degrading day to day. West Bengal government, forest government, it has failed in reviving this particular forest, where at that point of time local people they started reviving a forest. And there was a lot of developments in the course of sal forest, isn't it? So that is another instances you can mention. So that's all about the question. Coming to the next question. List some ancient water harvesting methods used in different regions of our countries. So we use many ancient water harvesting methods, that is water storing methods, rainwater storing methods. For example, in Rajasthan, we have a water harvesting technique called Khadins. And in Maharashtra, we call it as bandars and thals. Karnataka, katas. Himachal Pradesh, quills. Like that, in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, with different names, you call those water harvesting techniques, isn't it? So you should remember in which state, what is the water harvesting technique we call as, right? Next question. Forests are biodiversity hotspots, give reason. So why do we call forests are biodiversity hotspot? Because forest will have many varieties of species of plants and animals, isn't it, in one place, whereas that is very much important to maintain ecological balance, right? So that is the reason we call forest as biodiversity hotspot. See, I'm not writing this answer on a board because it's very simple. Try to understand it. We call biodiversity hotspot is because forests are rich with varieties of species of plants and animals, which is very much required to maintain ecology. Clear? Fine. And the next simple question, reuse is better than recycling. Why? See, reuse is always better than recycling, and why? See, if you want to recycle, lots of energy we have to use. Recycling involves lots of technology, lots of manpower, and it takes lots of time, right? Since energy consumption is involved in recycling, to avoid that energy consumption, we can always go for reuse. Clear? So very simple question. And the next question, what are the two main goals of Ganga Action Plan? You know why this Ganga Action Plan was introduced? It is because the Ganga river had got lots of coliform bacteria. Coliform bacteria. See, where do this coliform bacteria present? It is present in the human intestine, right? Presence of this coliform indicates that the river water has contaminated to a maximum extent. So to prevent that, they have introduced a set of measures to protect Ganga. We call it as Ganga Action Plan. So they asked you to give 2 points, right? Why this Ganga Action Plan was introduced. Say the first point you can write as to improve the quality of river water, and second one is to control disease causing microorganisms like coliform to prevent water pollution. Okay, so these are the 2 points you can mention. With this, I am completing a video on biology part. See, I have covered all the chapters for you all, and do watch all these parts. Share with your friends. Part 1 included chemistry, part 2 included physics, and part 3 video included biology. Share with maximum number of children so that everybody get benefit, and it is our duty to help with one another, isn't it? So, and in the next video, I'll be dealing with the diagrams. Say, I did not draw the diagrams, but especially the bio part. It's because in the next video, I'll show you how to draw the diagram easily, and labeling of diagrams and different parts. While labeling, they'll ask you for different parts, and the different parts function also I'm going to tell you, right? So the next video is on drawing diagrams and diagram based questions I will discuss. So do watch that video also. So hope these videos are giving enough benefit for you all, and you can share your views about these videos. Like, you tell me whether you have got 100% benefit or not, so that we can feel satisfied or happy for doing this video. Because instead of so much of busy schedule, we are making our time and doing all this just for the students, those who are writing their board examination during this pandemic. So we feel very happy when you share your viewpoints. So in case if you want any other videos, you can post it in the comments. We will definitely try to do it if something is very, very important and if it is useful for everybody. Clear? So don't forget to share the videos and do subscribe our channel to learn the concepts in the easiest way and in a detailed way. Thank you so much.